الله الكبير. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. الله الكبير. Again, we are honored here today and that we are making contact with our Creator, and this is a huge, unique opportunity that we have today that God has seen fit for us to be here and worship Him alone and mentioning His name alone and call upon Him alone. So this is a huge blessing that we have today. So we should never forget this, and we should be grateful to the source of this blessing that we have, and understand that this is all coming from God, and we are in no position to initiate these things by ourselves. This is the huge favor that God has bestowed upon us today, and so we should be making sure that we are in a position that continue doing this, whatever we are doing, that we are dialing in this number or doing the contact prayers on Friday in a congregational manner, and so this is a huge blessing for us that we are actually honored to be participant in this endeavor. Gratefulness is a godlike quality, and we should follow His path, which is the only path, which is the straight path that takes us back to Him, and that's what our goal should be. That we should go back to our Creator eventually and spend eternity at God's sight. What I wanted to discuss with you, I want to elaborate on what I said last week, and in order to do that, I want to concentrate on one verse in the Quran, and that is chapter 22, verse 5, and so we learn that basically life begins at the moment of conception last time, and God is actually in this verse puts a little bit more of a burden on a lot of people and goes one step beyond that, and so we have to pay attention to this. This is chapter 22, verse 5. God says, "O you people, if you're in doubt about the resurrection, then we indeed created you from clay, then from semen, then from an embryo, then from a fetus, which was deemed created or not created, in order to clarify for you, or in order that we clarify for you. And we place in the wombs what we will for a predetermined interim. Then we bring you out as a baby. Then we develop you to full maturity. And amongst you are some who die and some who reach the oldest age, in order to realize that nothing can be learned any longer. And you see the barren land, we then send down water upon it, whereby it vibrates, multiplies, and grows all kinds of beautiful things." So there are reasons for this, the way that God has described it here. Okay, and we were talking about the situation with abortion last time, and now God is putting a little bit more burden upon the male species, and He says after dust, which was, or clay, that was the progenitor of Adam and his wife, were actually Adam, and then from Adam was the mate was created, and then God says, then from semen. So God puts this responsibility on the male species, okay, that they have a responsibility. The semen is not a toy for people to use. Okay, unfortunately, in this world, the idea of sexual relation between men and women has nothing to do with procreation. Okay? Procreation is way down there. The idea that semen is used basically for carnal satisfaction and lust, basically. It has nothing to do with procreation. God is defined differently. He says this is just like resurrection. He said if you are in doubt about the resurrection, this is how we created you. This has to do with procreation. Okay? We have to think about these verses, what God is telling us. That men cannot go ahead and impregnate women, okay, and use that as an object of lust and carnal satisfaction just because they are men and they don't get pregnant. And all the burdens would be on the females. You can't do that. God is saying, no, it's your fault. And the interesting thing about this, that this one it says actually, min nutfatin summa min alaqatin. Okay? Remember it says, khalaqa al-insana min alaq? That was masculine, now this is feminine. This alaqatin is feminine. So then again, in the depth of Quranic knowledge that we have, in the depth of Quranic information that we keep receiving from God, is saying that the female alaqatin, which means the embryo which is female, is more in danger. We know that. We know that what's going on in many countries, that male offsprings are being protected, they are being favored as compared to the females. We know that. And that's why God is so concise about this. Do not make these mistakes. Okay? And then we turn back and we think that somehow we are going to succeed in our lives. We are not going to do that until we go back to these verses, and see what God is saying. What was the design all about? Okay? Well, a lot of people say, well, then you are saying that we can't have any fun? That's what a lot of people question that. Yes, you can, but there are limitations on that. You cannot just do it promiscuously. There are rules and regulations that God has described in the Quran that we have to follow. And if we do not follow those rules and regulations, we are the ones who is going to pay. And again, as I said, then we ask, what have we done wrong? We worship God alone. Did we pay attention to these verses? Did we say what was the reason for this? Why God in this verse added this from semen? That actually the doer of this whole thing, the initiator of it is the male species rather than the female? That's the one who did it? And that person is responsible for this? That we cannot go around, as I said, and distort God's rules and regulations and His commandments and then expect to be successful. Expect to have a prosperous life. Won't happen that way. Okay? So what are the regulations? Okay, I'm going to go to chapter 30, verse 20. Okay, he says, God says, and amongst his signs is that he created you from clay. Again, we go back to that. Then you became reproducing humans. Then the procreation started at that level. And so, how is this procreation is done? Is it done promiscuously? With the male species don't have any responsibility? Will we have a mess that we are in and we don't have any answer to it? That we fix one mistake with another mistake? Says, and amongst his signs is that he created for you from amongst yourselves spouses in order to find tranquility with them and establish among you love and kindness. Indeed, in this there are signs for people who think. And God decreed the institution of marriage. Says, okay, this is how you're supposed to do this. Because once you do that, then the blessing will come. When you obey these commandments, the blessing comes. If this is done promiscuously, obviously, it's not going to be any blessing. We can't enjoy that anymore. God says in the Quran, He says the praise should be that let our children be a source of happiness for us. The children that are produced by unlawful commands, unlawful decrees, are not going to be a source of happiness. Only those that are obeying these commandments of God. So he decrees the divine institution of marriage, through which you can have offspring. You can have the reproducing human beings through that mechanism, not any other mechanism. Again, if we disobey those commandments that God is decreed for us, we are going to be in deep trouble. And we are in deep trouble. Arguments come about, the disunity amongst people is going to be created, okay, because we disobeyed God's commandments. Because we did not pay attention when God told us things. Okay. Very simple message. Very simple message. We are the one who messes it up. We ignore it. Okay. We throw it behind our back. We think that irresponsible usage of these mechanisms that God has created is going to be more conducive to our behavior or our well-being. It's not. It's going to backfire on us. And it does. Okay? So we should use God's system, but not abuse it. We are now in a state of abusing God's system. That we are using it for different things. Read the Quran, it says, what did Joseph do? Joseph had that chance. Joseph had the opportunity. He was a lot better looking than all of us. Okay? He did not abuse that looks that he had. He knew it. He knew he's not supposed to do that. He knew this mechanism. 4,000 years ago, he knew this. And we're still struggling with this. Okay? Joseph exactly, he knew not to abuse that. The blessing that God has given him, okay, the blessing that you have from God, all those mechanisms that God has given you, you are not supposed to abuse them. If you abuse them, you're going to see the consequence of those abuse. And the consequences are severe. We are not going to be happy. Okay? These mechanisms that we have are designed for a very specific person. For a specific purpose. Okay, by God. And then when they say, oh, according to God's will, that means that whoever God wants and wills is going to succeed. No, sir, no, ma'am. That's not true. That means according to God's law. This is God's law, and you are abusing God's law, you're breaking God's law, and you're going to suffer. That's what happens. God is not going to play favorite with this and that and the other. No. He's telling us that, look, if you don't go according to my laws, you're going to suffer the consequences. And that's exactly what's happening to our situation in this world right now. Okay? So we have to think about these things. Be very careful in what we do and how we behave. If we don't do that, we are going to suffer the consequences. As we see, there are a lot of consequences for these mistakes. Okay, I'm going to stop here. Allahu al-Kabir. Subhan Rabbi al-Azim. Allahu al-Kabir. Allahu al-Kabir. سبحان ربي الأعلى الله الكبير الله الكبير سبحان ربي الأعلى الله الكبير الله الكبير بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين الله الكبير. So I'm going to go down just one more verse, and then God says, He says, and amongst His signs is that He created the vacuum and matter and the variation of your languages and your colors. Indeed, in this, there are signs for the people who are knowledgeable, or for the knowledgeable. So, I want to go to that, and let's see where we're right here. Okay, so last week, I don't know how many of you followed NASA's news conferences about the Webb telescope, and this picture here, I have this picture of the Hubble telescope. It's from a patch of the sky, and you see that God says in the Quran, He said, and it was like a smoke. Okay, the sky was like a smoke. Okay, so this is these sterile nurseries that at the very beginning of the universe started. Gases, they came together and they produced stars. This is a picture of a Hubble telescope. Okay, and now what I want to do is I want to go to another picture. And this is the same picture, the same patch of the sky, but now this time there's the Webb telescope. And as you see all of these other stars that were unseen by the Hubble telescope, now they're seen. This looked like somebody with a very nearsighted vision or something. And subhanAllah, look at this one. And in the cloud itself, in the smoke itself, you can actually see a lot more stars being produced. Okay. And this is absolutely amazing, and this is really breathtaking. These pictures are, by God's grace, they're breathtaking. And so this is this is the Southern Nebula, and the Southern Nebula in here, it looks like that at the middle there were actually two stars there. In the old pictures, if you look at it, there's only just one bright, shiny place there. But this one has so much resolution that it can actually tell you what the other star is, which is a yellow star. The hotter star is the white one. Okay, so this is a star that's in a state of dying, actually. And this is the same picture. And as you see here, this line here to the left, upper left corner, that's actually a galaxy that was never seen before. So there's another galaxy right here. Okay, and now this is a deep view of the web. And these lights, they started more than 13 billion years ago, and now we see them. We are privileged to see them with this telescope. And this is just the beginning of this. Okay, there are other pictures that actually shows that can actually tell you what kind of gases are in the atmosphere of other planets. Okay, that is absolutely mind-boggling. They can tell you that if there's oxygen or carbon dioxide or nitrogen in the atmosphere of other planets or water vapor. Okay? So it gives you the spectroscopy of all of those elements. So it tells you that, is that planet habitable or not habitable? So this view here, this is actually, this patch of the sky compared to the whole sky, which is called 4 pi. That means the solid angle is 4 pi, steradian. Solid angle is called steradian, not radian, steradian. Okay? And that means it's 4 pi steradian. That means the whole sky. This patch of the sky is as though you have a grain of sand and you hold it at arm's length. Okay? That's how big this patch of the sky is. And look at the number of galaxies. Every little dot that you see there is a galaxy. And so it seems that there is no end to these galaxies. We go deeper and deeper into the cosmos, and there are more galaxies. And even behind these galaxies, you see these things that look like it's bent. These yellow things, yellowish things that look like it's bent. These are galaxies which is behind these other galaxies, and the light has been bent by the gravitational lensing of these galaxies. So, but you cannot see the galaxy itself because it's behind the galaxy, but you can see the images on the side. It's called gravitational lensing, according to Einstein's theory of relativity. Okay, this is absolutely mind-boggling. Okay, absolutely mind-boggling. And this is the Stevens quintuplet, and this is the 5 galaxies together, and it's a picture of those 5 galaxies. It just the first week it took all of these pictures. Okay, and there are more pictures coming every day. Every day. Okay, these are never seen before pictures because at this side you see this yellowish reddish stuff on this side has never been seen before, but now they are coming into focus. Okay, and this was a very, very short exposure. That means they're not collecting enough photons. If you just aim it at this patch of the sky and collect more photons, then you'll see, oh my God, this is absolutely amazing. But again, we go back to that verse. It says that He created vacuum and matter. Okay, that's His sign. And then He tells us about that this is actually is more complicated than the creation of human being, what most people do not know. Because most people are too self-centered. They think that they are the center of the universe. And they are the most complex of creatures. Okay, but we're not. This is. Okay, this is God's way of showing this to us. And as I said, this actually, it adds to the greatness of God. Okay, it magnifies it. It extols God. Every time we see a picture like this, it extols God. And so, as I said, this is actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is 13.1 billion light years away. That means that these lights that we see today started 13.1 billion years ago. That's what we see today. Okay? And it can go deeper than this. This instrument can go actually to 13.5 billion light years deep in the cosmos. Okay? And then as it collects more and more photons, more and more galaxies come into the view. There are some dark patches in here, and in those dark patches there are galaxies, but you don't have enough photons. You don't have enough of those photons because they're so far away that they have not come into picture yet. But they will come into picture. So this shows the greatness of God. Okay. It's absolutely breathtaking. And I don't have any adjective to describe this. Okay, no adjective can do justice. Let's put it that way. Okay. And that's why it's so important that we stick with the description of God in the Quran and do not go beyond that. Okay, because we are going to again dig a hole for ourselves because we cannot. We don't have that knowledge to describe God. God introduces himself to us in the Quran. And that's what we have to stick to. Okay, I'm going to stop here and we'll finish our Jum'ah. Allahu al-Kabir.